debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live.
This is why we need independent media.
Hello and welcome to Civically Minded. This is part of the Heartlands Media team. I'm your host, Lainey Peterson, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mr. Kit Cabello. We got Faze behind the scenes running the board. We have our fabulous moderators in chat keeping the peace. And, of course, we have all of you who show up day in, day out to support independent media. We cannot thank you enough. I do apologize for the late start today. Massive problems with transportation here in Chicago, which we will be talking about during the Patreon show. So if you're one of our patrons, please do stick around for that show.
And patrons, we will have the patron list set up for tomorrow. Apologies, that's on my end. There's been a lot of work I've been trying to do here. And plus, I'm proud to announce that the wonderful, incredible Lauren will be coming back.
She is.
Tomorrow.
She's back from Spain.
So there we go.
I've been following her eating and drinking adventures and her trip to Spain, so I'm sure she'll have a lot to talk about.
Well, you know what? I mean, not only are we going to have an awesome patron show tonight, but we're going to have an awesome patron show tomorrow. So if you want to find out about Lauren's adventures in Hispania, well, then become a patron supporter right away. You get some spicy stories. So there you go. So again, thank you so much to all of our patron supporters. Again, that new list will be up. We're reading the two list names back to back for tomorrow because let's face it, it'll be a special show. Lauren will be back, and we'll have a great show for all of you, not only today, but for tomorrow as well. Also, be sure to subscribe to Chicago Corner live every Tuesday and Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heartlands Media on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. So with that being said, we are so grateful and thankful that all of you are so faithful to us. Lainey.
All right, so we've got a lot of news today. First of all, and I'm mentioning this even though it's an Illinois-specific report, I am mentioning this because, look, if an illness is in Illinois, we know it's everywhere.
Yes.
And so what's happening is, as many of you are aware, that there has been this outbreak of monkeypox.
Yes.
That's going around. It's made a few of us a little on the nervous side. And it looks as though there has been at least one case identified in Chicago, Illinois. It's been identified. This is an official release. And it's the Chicago Department of Public Health and the Illinois Department of Public Health. So we know this is coming from an official source. The patient is doing well. This is not an illness that usually gets people terribly ill. It's just nobody likes to think about having a pox. Nobody wants a pox.
Or monkeypox or anything like that.
Any kind of pox. No pox. But there's one case of it. They don't believe there's much risk to the public. I'm just urging everybody at this time. I know that medical care in this country is already a mess, as we all know. Yep. It's even more of a mess because of the still existing global health emergency. And now we've got some other weird things creeping up. So I think it is rare. It can be potentially serious. It is rare. Infections will last 2 to 4 weeks. What you will want to do is, if you suspect that you have any symptoms of this condition, do get a hold of a physician. Even if you don't necessarily have one, you might want to contact a public health clinic. You might want to contact the Department of Public Health in your area to ask what you should be doing. They can record this. So just so that you're aware of this. The other thing, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, that there's been this outbreak of weird hepatitis among children. And it's happening. It's been happening now. There's been about 200 pediatric hepatitis cases that in I guess the U.S. at this point. There have been others around the world. In some cases, it's been very serious. Children have required liver transplants. Some children have died. And they can't figure out what it's caused by, because normally there's certain viruses that will cause it. They can't figure out yet what that is. They're looking at the possibility of a very relatively common virus, Adenovirus. Okay.
There we go.
They suspect that may be what is triggering this. They are not sure. They do not believe it is related to the recent global health crisis, but they have also said they can't rule that out. So again, if you start seeing symptoms of jaundice, kind of children appear to be ill, again, probably a good idea to, if you can, seek medical care. If we had a decent medical system in this country, I'd be able to give better information, Kit.
Well, hey, we are in a mess, but at least we got $40 billion to Ukraine.
And more threats from the Russians.
There we go. So
it's
money for war.
Money for war and for guns.
Money to bail out the banks and the corporations.
Money to spy on people.
Yeah, money to arrest whistleblowers. So, see, folks, Congress can do things, but it's just not for you. So I wish we could get some better information, but unfortunately, we are the richest country in the world, and we don't have Medicare for our citizens. So, number one, folks. So there we go.
Yeah. So, in any case, we've got these two mysterious illnesses.
Please be careful out there.
Please be very careful.
Everyone, just be careful.
And again, I mean, like as I say, I think take any illness seriously. If it's probably just a cold or the flu, that's one thing. But if it's looking more serious, seek medical attention if you possibly can. That's best I can say at this point.
Exactly.
I wish I could tell you more.
All right, we're going to move on now to our next segment. And again, everyone, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that ring bell notification. That way you know when we go live.
All right. Strange story from Inside Higher Ed. There has been a fifth straight semester of enrollment declines in colleges.
I am not shocked by it. I am not surprised. And I know there's a little bit in the article, but I just want to add in something because I don't want to take the story all away from you. But this is something that I talked about on yesterday's show. Look, when it comes down to higher education here in America, especially young people that are watching this, look, take time. Like when you graduate from high school, take a year off. Figure out if you want to go to higher education, go to a trade school or use that. Save up on your money. Do research on looking to going to college overseas where not only is it affordable or potentially to be free. Because the sad fact is, getting an education in America is detrimental to you because you'll be heavily put into student debt. And look, there's people in our live stream chat have been telling us, look, we've been paying off student debt for 20 years and 5 years or 10 years, I'll be able to pay it off. Now, I don't want anyone to go through that. I don't want anyone that's still paying to be going through student debt. I want student debt to be forgiven. But if you're going to be going for higher education, if you want to do that, trade schools or take your time and go to school overseas, it will be far more affordable for you because, again, look at the cost of education. Look at the amount of people that are stuck with student debt. Look at the amount of depression that's happening. This is an unfair system. At one point, Lainey, education in America was affordable. It was attainable.
Okay, here's the thing. I started college in 1988. January of 1988 is when I started at Illinois State University. In-state tuition, including room and board, was roughly around $4,000 a year at that point. Even accounting for inflation, what schools are charging now is fundamentally ridiculous. I'd also want to point out that for a very long time, if you had a college diploma, a high school diploma in this country, you were set for a good paying job. Mm-hmm. My father only had a high school diploma, and yet he eventually moved into ad sales, eventually moved into management, was working for a premier publishing company in this country. When he passed away, he was actually at the age of 53. He actually was the ad sales manager for the western half of the United States. They divided the country up into two halves, and he was the western states ad sales manager, making a very good living. He at one point was asked to give a talk at Northwestern University, and all of the young people, to the MBA students, and the kids were asking where he got his MBA, and he said, I don't have one. Oh, where'd you go to college? Didn't go. And that's what you could do back then. And we've got this gatekeeping that's based on an arbitrary credential, which may not have anything to do with your ability to actually do a job, but it has sure taken up your time, possibly put you or your family into debt, or at least deprived you of money that you could have used to, say, buy a home.
Yep.
And also has kept you out of the job market for several years.
Yeah.
Somebody was making a point to me that in Europe, medical students, for example, typically start their education at around the age of 18, and it's a 6-year program. And he said that so these kids, they get to start their careers and start earning at least 2 years earlier than many doctors here in the United States do. So that gives them an extra 2 years of earnings, and they don't have anywhere near the debt that people incur in this country. And you wonder why, for example, people have accused doctors of recommending unnecessary procedures, or why might that happen? Why might lawyers screw people over? Not necessarily in an illegal way, but it's certainly making recommendations or slowing things down when they could be handling cases much more efficiently. Is there the real possibility that when you're under economic stress, that maybe you're going to compromise your ethics a little bit?
I'm just gonna. I'm speechless at this point because the article is surprised that there's such a decline, that there is a lack of people re-enrolling or enrolling into college.
Yeah.
When you create a system where, especially to where young people are seeing what millennials are going through with student debt, a rational person and a rational thought, and I don't care what society or your schools tell you, your rational mind is, do I want to be in $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 in debt, and I'm still paying off the interest? Because take, for example, that $10,000 that Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders' good friend, wants to pardon, right? That's paying off interest. That's not paying off the primary. That's what that is putting, getting a nice ice bucket of water and throwing it at a raging forest fire. Good luck.
Yeah. I'll point out here is what they did say, that first-time freshman enrollment is up by 4.2%. And that does reverse a decline of 3.5% that took place over the spring. However, they did notice that there has been a 6.5% decline in black freshmen at this point. Now, again, there could be a number of reasons for this. If it does mean, again, I don't support the need for higher education for everybody, but certainly if people who would like to pursue higher educations or careers that require it, if they are not going to school because they are afraid of going to school, the amount of debt seems overwhelming, or there are other barriers, that's a real problem. And I will continue to maintain that it is also a real problem if people are going to school because that's the only way they think they can get ahead in life, when it very simply, a few decades ago, that was not the case. This is an interesting bit of information. I do also think that there are people who are questioning the value of these degrees and don't see really the point in pursuing something that's going to financially disadvantage them. Yeah, you might make more money in a career where you have to have a college education, but all that money is going to be taken away from you.
Higher education. Maybe I'm being too idealistic for this one, but college was or should be an area for enlightenment, to expand your mind, to learn different perspectives and points of view. But looking at the current environment in college, where speech is censored, the price of admission and being a student is getting extremely overpriced, the mental anguish and the uncertainty of the job market, it's not worth it. Now, when I say it's not worse, and I'm not saying don't go to college, especially to young people that might watch our show, right? Go to a trade school or either that. Take your time. And if you want to go to a 4-year college, go to one in Europe or in Canada, not in the United States. It'll be the worst mistake you can make, going to college here in the United States, because no matter what, even if it's a state school, still got to pay off that student debt. Private colleges, student debt. It's getting ridiculous, and it's not worth anyone to be going through this anguish and the physical and mental toll that it will take on somebody. So I hope that someday things do change, but let's face it, we have a president, Joe Biden, who is responsible for making student debt what it is when he sided with the credit card corporations. So basically, no student can can declare bankruptcy. So student debt is something that stays with you forever.
Well, that's not absolutely true.
Please correct me.
Okay, the thing of it is that it is possible to discharge your debt, student debt in bankruptcy, but you have to initiate a separate proceeding.
Okay.
And you have to go through a process I think it's called the Bruner test, where they look at your income, what you can expect to earn, your debt and your indebtedness, and they determine whether it is feasible for you to pay off your student debt. There have been some cases where those discharges have been allowed. Most student debtors do not ever apply, very few. However, a study that was done a few years ago, I reported on it back in 2019, I believe, did show that of those who did apply for the bankruptcy discharge, about 40% got it. So if you're actually trying for it, yes. And there was an appeals court judge, again, this was right before the global health emergency, who essentially in one of these cases just put out an opinion that just was a tongue lashing for everybody involved, and said, lawyers are not telling their clients about this. The courts are ignoring their own rules. The Bruner test does exist. There is relief in bankruptcy for student loan debtors, and they're not being informed about it. And the courts are not upholding this appropriately, and it needs to stop. So what I will tell you, I think it's the National Consumer Law Center. They do have some information on how you can go ahead and apply for this for a discharge. Again, it's going to cost you more money, and you're going to have to find an attorney that has some familiarity with the process and is willing to push for it. But it is possible to get it to do this. It's just a lot harder. And the legal community and the judicial community has not really participated in this kind of relief. And that's another set of problems.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Annalene, for explaining that.
Yeah.
So, look, it's not impossible, but you got to work for it.
It's very hard. It's
Yes.
not easy. You have to meet very specific standards. But the more people that do it, and at least try for it, first of all, it pushes lawyers to become familiar with it. It pushes the judges to become familiar with it. And you might be able to set some precedents in the process.
And hold on, there's something else I want to mention. So, Jack Klugman, all right, you bring a fair point. College was great for me. Had some great classes and was in a punk band, but was also lucky and parents paid for it as they did for the other 4 kids when it was still possible in the 80s and early 90s.
Yep.
There was
You're
a
right.
point
There was a time.
There was a time.
Yeah.
Even before the 80s, too. So
the other thing to keep in mind is that the job market is still pretty good for job seekers right now. There are still a lot of employers out there trying to hire people. If you have any concerns about this and you are a young person, you might want to try, or even if you're somebody who doesn't have a college degree and you're looking for a career change, you may want to try for a job that you think is above your grade, just because some employers are desperate. And employers usually like to promote from within. Mm-hmm. You get that job and you're working at it and you can start moving forward. You may find that you're a bit like my father, somebody who never needed the degree, was able to go forth based on his professional accomplishments and reputation. Or you may find yourself in a much better financial position because you've been working all this time, so that if you do decide to go to college, It's a more affordable option, and you will know exactly what kind of career track you want to be on. Something to think about.
Exactly.
All right. A little bit more update here. This is just... All right. Infant formula. The U.S. government now has the Operation Fly Formula program. We need our own operation here in this country to feed our own infants.
Don't worry, we got $40 billion for Ukraine. It's fine. Don't worry. Stop asking questions, people.
We're getting shipments of formula from the United Kingdom and Australia. The UK and Australia are bailing us out with infant formula.
Come on, corporate America. You're telling me that if we don't, come on, corporate America, we gave you this environment to be laissez-faire, so there's no regulations, no whole you got, and you guys are saying that you could do things great. You could do some big brain moves, and now all of a sudden it turns out the corporations can't do jack. Our politicians can't do jack because they're owned by the corporations, and our media, of course, won't say the truth because they're owned by the corporations. The same corporations that control every aspect here in America. What, Blaney, what could possibly go wrong?
So, United Airlines is actually donating flights to bring the Operation Formula in. I mean, great. But I mean, this is the kind of thing that I expect us to do in a famine-stricken developing country. And we're doing it here in our own country because we're a famine-stricken developing country, I guess. I mean, unlike developed countries, we don't have universal health care.
We don't have UBI. We don't have, again, social programs to help out the elderly. We don't have anything to help out struggling families. Roads are filled with potholes. Don't worry, we're going to talk about that on the Patreon show, folks. But this is a sad state of affairs. We don't have enough baby formula now. I never thought I'd live to see the day
when the United Kingdom and Australia are sending us baby formula on donated jets.
We did it, folks.
We did it.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Turtle Boy Mitch. Thanks, Joe Biden. You senile old bats.
Okay, yeah. So the White House announced on Wednesday.
Oh,
and this is from CNN.
Wait. I love our audience. AG says the Russians have no issue with baby formula. Putin greater than Biden. Oh.
Well, here's the deal. 2 million cans of Kendamil infant formula from the United Kingdom is going to be starting on June 9th. And then also the shipments will also include 3.2 million bottles of Kendamil Classic Stage 1 and 540,000 bottles of Kendamil Organic. Undonated air flights, because we need a federal special operation.
Well, this is again the aspects of a dying nation, where we are stuck in stagnation, where we have the fact that everything is now relying on a supply chain that can no longer effectively function. So, well done, politicians, well done, corporate media, for creating this neoliberal nightmare that we are in, to where now food insecurity is going to be more commonplace. Babies starving will be more commonplace in America. This will be our new normal. Now, what are our politicians doing about it? They're not going to do anything for you. That's the number one thing that everyone needs to get drilled into your head. Even if you're a diehard Democratic voter or a diehard Republican voter, these politicians, I'm going to say this on the show over and over again, they don't like you, they don't respect you, they don't think about you. The only time they ever call upon you, the American people, is when it's time to vote, because it adds legitimacy to the two-party system. It adds legitimacy to these political parties, the Democrats and Republicans, that this is our only choices and that these are the two teams that we need to root for. What we need to do is break away from it. That's the solution. We need to start building organizations and movements that are not connected to these politicians in Washington, D.C. Where's Bernie Sanders at? How come he's not raising the ruckus towards his old friend, Joe Biden? Where is Elizabeth Warren? Oh, is she going to put on other shows giving fake outrage even though Democrats could have codified Roe v. Wade? No, probably not. Where's AOC? Where's the squad at? Oh, the Congressional Progressive Caucus? That oh so powerful Congressional Progressive Caucus that was basically bullied, pushed around, and were told not to support Nina Turner. And to everyone else that's carrying water for the Democrats, how much more pathetic are you going to get? How much more time? I know that Nomiki Konst is thinking about, I think she is making a run for state senate in New York. Mm-hmm. Running as a Democrat. I mean, you know that you're going to get slapped around because the Democrats don't respect any of them. Even when outlets like TYT or Majority Report try and give their little fake defense for the Democrats are okay with letting the system run as it is, just like the entire Republican Party. Voters need to wake up to the fact that these politicians are okay with your children starving.
Yeah.
No debate. There's no debate about this. If you're a Republican voter or Democratic voter and you're going to come at me and tell me my party does this, and this, I'm going to tell you your party's going to sell you out for war. Your party's going to sell you out to the corporations. Your party has already been selling you out. They've been slapping you in the face. They've been laughing behind your back. They're going to lie in front of your face. And also, they're going to have the media to give you their perspectives and their point of view. And there's no way you're going to, again, sit at the table. Because these politicians know they can rely on you. So if you're a Democratic voter or Republican voter, don't sell me your BS. Wake up to the fact and realize you're in an abusive relationship. Whether you're being beaten by the abusive Republican father or being manipulated by the pill-popping Democratic mother. So there you go.
Yeah. Speaking of being a nation in crisis, a dying nation, a dying empire, a failed state, very disturbing report from the Seattle Times. I will give a warning ahead of time. It does deal with sensitive issues regarding psychological distress and self-harm. So to be aware of this. There have been a rising number of attempts by very young children to end their lives in the Pacific Northwest. Okay. And it is essentially what they're looking at, for example, the number of children between, this is actually now going from the year 2000 to 2020, children in the younger age group, say from 6 to 12, the number of attempts has increased by 4.5 times during that period of time. Which is compared to a 2.4-fold increase among older adolescents. Very specifically, self-harm and suspected attempt cases, but found in by age, the percentage increase from 2019 to 2021 was 57.8% in children between the ages of 6 and 12. Wow. This is compared to children between the ages of 13 and 17, that is 36.9%, which is still ridiculously high.
My goodness. Okay,
so we've got kids. It's also mostly affecting girls, with a 48% increase in that 2019 to 2021 time period, compared to 2.8% for males. There's so many things wrong here. But apparently what is happening is that these children are accessing pharmaceuticals in their homes, which they know about, they're familiar with, and their parents have probably been warning with them for a long time that they're dangerous to take, and they are attempting using those pharmaceuticals. Because, when we grew up, you and I probably were the same thing. Our parents warned us very early about household poisons and medicines, because they're all over the place, and you have to be very specific with children very early on. Yeah, you have to scare them. They used to put these labels on them, glow-in-the-dark labels, Mr. Yuck, with the Poison Control Center number on them. But these numbers, again, this is in Washington State, in the Pacific Northwest. This is very distressing. The fact that there are children this young who are increasing. And we know that over the past couple of years, of course, children have not been in school, or they've not had, and there's not been any mental health support. It's been very difficult to get any kind of mental health support. But now we're seeing it's taking its toll on this extremely, this segment where we've never seen that before.
Well, there's a couple of issues that we have to look at. Number one, you brought the fact that young people haven't been going to school because of the pandemic. Number two, there's the ever-growing problem of evictions from people being evicted from their homes and apartments. Families, especially those who are from small business families, right, who have everything in that business to survive, is these businesses are being shut down. We also have to add into the fact that inflation is causing prices to rise up, and it's creating this environment of despair. Then you have this opioid crisis that we're in too, where, you know, you have young people perhaps who are in charge of a household because if not one or both parents are addicted to a dangerous substance, be it not only alcohol, but opioids or something else entirely. And what's happening, and I think someone in the live stream chat brought it up, there's no future for the kids in America.
Yeah.
And when you have an environment where there's no future, how it's difficult for me to even say, like, oh, here's what we can do, because the thing is, we have a problem that's being ignored by our politicians on purpose. They're okay with ignoring this problem because it's not affecting them.
Yeah.
And sadly, it doesn't look like it's going to get any better, because again, we still have an opioid crisis, we have an eviction crisis, we have businesses that are being shut down, we have inflation, we have no health care in this country. And when you see your loved ones suffering, and think about what it causes for young people, especially seeing this, what it does to them mentally and physically, it could be a breaking point. And it comes to a point to where they just can't go on. And it's unfortunate that this is the world that we're in.
Yeah. It is really distressing. So I'll be looking at that and maybe try to get some more information. But I think it's children that young losing hope. Yeah. That is very distressing. I wanted to move on to another interest.
Before we do move on, we got something on Rockfin here real quick. Let's chat here. We got something. Roger Meadows, $50. A pox on both houses. I used to think that Reagan was the worst president in the 20th century, how he turned us away from government being used to help us towards embracing Wall Street and corporate bosses. He set the precedents for presidents to follow. I no longer believe he was the worst. Now I think it's Truman who gave us NSA, CIA, and MIC. Also Laney Peterson. I started college September in 1988. Tuition $5,200. Kit, check your DM. You'll bug out. I will. Also, Roger Meadows, $50. Bro, Kit, you know corporate ain't going to do jack. Yes, I know that was broken English, but don't care. But Kit, you are barking up the wrong tree about corporation worker co-ops are the way to go as the only way to ensure. We might need to feed that to our babies instead, but to ensure manufacturing stays here, since the worker owner will never outsource the manufacturing plant out to the community state. What? Gee, I don't think I said that we could trust corporations.
I didn't think so.
I was being sarcastic with
probably being very sarcastic.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic with corporations, my friends.
All right, so essentially, this is shifting gears. Single-family resident tenants. These are essentially single-family homes that are being rented by individuals and families. The demographic on that is changing. This is information from a single-family rent forum. It was an industry forum. What they've noticed is that the average single-family renter in many markets is now between the ages of 24 and 40. Millennials and blue-collar workers are much of this demographic. Salaries averaging $60,000 to $70,000 a year. There's also more single-parent homes in that genre. Now, also in that demographic, the other thing to keep in mind is that there are people who sold their homes but now are stuck renting because because housing stock is in such short supply, they can't find a place to live and they can afford. Plus, on average, according to this article and this panel, the average cost for housing has gone up about $500 for many families. So what's happening is people are renting these homes. They don't want to be. This is we've always had a situation where some people prefer to rent a house. They don't want to live in an apartment building. They don't want neighbors above them or below them or to the side of them. That makes sense. But they don't want to buy because they're not going to stay in the area for too long. Mm-hmm. There are things that there are good reasons to rent a house. But now this is people who are stuck renting the houses because they don't have other options. They cannot afford other options, or maybe they were homeowners. They thought they were going to be able to get something after selling their place, and now they're stuck and paying out their income in rent and not being able to save, invest it, or put it into a home of their own. This is a shift. And this is actually coming from, this is a real estate industry publication. This is not some spin. This is a real estate industry publication.
Well, homeowner, the whole idea of the American dream was to own a home, to own property, to create generational wealth. And when you have politicians that forgive the banks and forgive Wall Street for example, causing the 2008 disaster, the economic recession that we went through in 2008, what our politicians did with the help of our media, they gave Wall Street and the banks a green light to do this again and again and again, because none of them were held accountable. No one who led to the 2008 economic collapse was held accountable for their crimes. And what they did was criminal to us. Yeah. We bailed them out. The American taxpayer bailed out Wall Street and the banks and the corporations. Now, the media has given us the propaganda that they know what they're doing. The man in the suit and tie knows what he is doing. The man in the suit and tie is also wise because he knows about money and business and finances and profit. But oh no, turns out they were risking our money, which caused us then to bail them out. None of those big brain geniuses in Wall Street got us out of the mess. They got us into the mess, and now they're going to get us right back into it again. Now look what's happening here in America. Every time I leave my house to go to the studio, I'm seeing more houses being shut down. I'm seeing people being evicted. I'm seeing businesses being shut down. This is happening because our politicians have allowed it to happen, and we have contributed to this as well because of our silent, obedient consent to our politicians. So to anyone that's a diehard Democratic voter or a diehard Republican voter, don't look me in the eye and tell me, oh, my team is better because X, Y, and Z. The politicians have built this environment so that we can constantly be abused. These politicians, again, don't like us. They don't think about us. They don't respect us. Yeah, I'm going to bring in Bernie Sanders and AOC. They don't respect us. They don't like us. They don't think about us because in all reality, you'd think they'd be raising the ruckus against their good old friend, their pal who exceeded expectations, Joe Biden. But they didn't do that. They keep on letting things happen. And now all this talk about, oh, we got to vote Democrats because the midterm, here comes this big red wave. The Democrats let that happen. The GOP is, again, it's a corrupt party. Kicking them right now is pointless because we know what to expect from the Republican Party. Absolutely nothing. And in 2024, we're going to get a clown show again. Trump's probably going to be running in the Republican primary. The Democrats, I don't know what they're thinking was putting all their chips with Biden. But then there's our own clown card that we're going to see with the Democrats, which is, turns out there's going to be Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, Bernie, Warren. So we're going to see all this stuff again, and it's going to be somehow snapped in with the progressive movement, and it's going to, again, derail everything, which is why I say on this show, progressives and independents, everyone needs to break away from the two-party system. Our politicians have built an environment to where it's not okay for you to own a home because it's going to be impossible. They want to make sure that you suffer, that you own nothing and you'll be happy about it. That's not the American dream. No one wants to live like that. No one should be living like that at all, period. But our politicians, Democrats and Republicans, are making it happen. And they're doing it for their constituents. Not you, the voter, but for the banks, the corporations, Wall Street, and the top 1%. You, the average citizen, do not have a seat at the table.
All right, then. Moving on, I did want to report two separate, actually, publications, Retail Wire as well as Yahoo, are reporting on some changes in the ways companies are going to are using customer reviews of employee performance. One of the things that's happened with technology is it's become a lot easier for customers to, as they say, file a complaint. It's no longer a matter of writing a letter or talking to the store manager. Somebody can just, zip off with whatever nonsense they want or hit a couple stars or hit 1 star and give somebody a bad review. And what's happening in some cases is that the workers are suffering for this because district managers are getting data, but they're not actually getting any context. And one of the things that's been happening, for example, with gig workers is that gig work these individuals do not have the same protections. Like if you're a shopper for Instacart or if you are a driver for Uber, you don't necessarily have the same protections as an employee would to, for example, being able to file for unemployment. So getting fired or suffering a penalty, such as not being able to get primo clients or assignments, can happen just because somebody else was having a bad day. So Instacart at this point is making the shift to providing those employees who have consistently high ratings, or not their employees, but their baggers or shoppers with consistently high ratings, basically giving them some leeway if they get a grumpy review from somebody who's constantly doing that, not counting that toward their ability to get claim assignments or even risking their position. Same thing, Starbucks also, employers are basically saying, look, these are, anybody can leave a bad review. If they're running a competing store, they could do that. Maybe they don't like somebody at that place, and they can just leave a bad review with no context and no investigation. And this is very difficult for the employees. It's very difficult. It's even more difficult for gig workers. And I think it's important for companies. Look, you want to make your customers happy, and if there's a problem, you want to know about it. But at the same time, immediately taking action against employees or workers is not a good approach. It's not humane because these rating systems can be so easily manipulated. And I'm glad to see that at least Instacart is actually taking some action. We'll see how well they go through with it. Starbucks, they're mad at employees for trying to unionize right now. So even though they are such a woke corporation, they may need to, they may need to reassess what's going on. Apparently, in some cases, managers are saying, look, if you don't start getting better reviews, if the store doesn't start getting better reviews, we're going to cut your hours. Well, that's a financial penalty. And again, it's not being based necessarily on something that's been investigated. I'll give you an example. It was over a year ago. I went to a store and I had a very unpleasant interaction with an employee. And I was very upset. And normally I don't complain because, there can be a whole lot of things going on, but I really did feel this needed to be addressed. I did call up, had company headquarters. I explained the situation. And I also explained that, while the worker's behavior was utterly inappropriate, the worker was also put into a bad situation by management decisions in this case. And I ended up getting a call back from the store manager, and to his credit, he investigated. He was not just getting data and then condemning somebody. He wanted to find out what happened. And he apologized to me and said, look, I realized that this shouldn't have happened. And I did say to him, now look, your employee, I think, was frustrated because there are certain issues with your store that she did not create. And I explained to them what those issues were, and he was very grateful. They haven't changed what's going on at that store, but, they were willing to actually take that extra step. But particularly with gig workers or where you have smaller shops like a Starbucks where you've got these managers in stores, they may be under such pressure that this can really hurt employees when you over-rely on just listening to customer feedback without any context.
Yeah, I would say we got to be better.
Yeah.
Let's just be better, all right? Let's try it. Look, we all know the planet's dying. Doesn't mean we can't help each other out.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, folks. And by the way, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that ring bell notification. That way you know when Harlan's Media goes live. We're live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch.
And I've got one story to round out with, and then we can get onto the Patreon show, and I'll talk about potholes.
Yes, potholes.
Yeah. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has issued its own new rule that is essentially deputizing state's attorney general to enforce federal consumer protection laws. So, in other words, when individual consumers are dealing with, shady banks, shady credit cards, malfunctioning products, any kind of consumer finance issue. Now they don't necessarily have to rely on the feds. States attorney generals who are responsible for this sort of thing can also take the initiative on this. So it's providing an additional layer of consumer protection. I, for one, am pleased to see this. You know, when consumer rights are being violated, particularly by the financial sector, that affects communities very deeply. Mm-hmm. And being able to see a more community-based or at least a state-based approach to dealing with these issues, I think is important. It's also another tool in the toolbox of these states' attorney generals who are absolutely responsible for enforcing consumer protection in their state. So I wanted to share that with everybody. I think it's some positive news. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is once again got its teeth, and I'm happy.
Well, hey, who says we can't end things on a good note?
Yeah.
Maybe. But don't worry, folks. You'll join us tomorrow for some more bad news because something stupid's always going to happen. Here's hoping it's not too stupid after all. We got something on Rockfin. Let's go ahead and pull that up here. Roger Meadows, tip $2. I know you're being sarcastic. So was I. You don't need to look at a DM. You already mentioned Nomiki running. Also, we should all pack our bags and just move to North Dakota to head off the coming financial crisis and to own a home. We got Laura Baza who says tip $2. Thank you. KC, I guess that's Kit Cabello.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that is those are my initials. So there you go. My middle initial is Adrian. So there you go. Also, we got another $2 on Rockfin. Dominic tipped us $2. Aside from accidents and medical problems, every other problem we experience is mostly due to our elected politicians that create or ignore them. This is why we need to elect people to be our public servants instead of servants for their corporate and wealthy donors. Learn how to vote after elections and use the political power we can now have in this 21st century.
Absolutely.
Can't argue or debate with that. Again, shout out to everyone that's supporting us. Again, so grateful for everything. Apologies for the lateness. We're going to talk about that on Patreon, but Delaney, I think it's only fair you should close us out.
All right, friends, I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. Do remember, we are here at 4 p.m. usually, Monday through Friday Central Time. We also have Chicago Corner at 7:30 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays and Fridays. And we also have World Perspectives Radio. Right now, we are doing live programming where my co-host and I talk about all kinds of spicy topics. That we can't talk about on certain platforms.
You.
Yeah. So, and that's from, and that's from 2 to 4 on Wednesdays. Yeah. So we've got a lot going on, a lot of great music, a lot of cool stuff happening. And something else?
We got a YouTube super chat from Marion Williams, who gave us $2.49 euros. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Again, we appreciate all of you for your support. Also, check out Chicago Reacts, Chicago Plays, our fantastic channels. You can go to 99perspectives.tv. There are links to all of our programs.
All of our programs, 99perspectives.tv. That way you can learn more about the studio, learn more about Heartlands Media, Chicago Corner, Chicago Reacts, Chicago Reacts Movies and TV, Chicago Plays, our Twitch channel. Where there's a lot of stuff happening, and also World Perspectives Radio Chicago. So also, if you want to help out Heartlands Media to contribute to 99 Perspectives, please consider being a patron supporter. Speaking of which, we got a patron show to do afterwards.
We do. All right, folks. So take care, and I will see you next week. Peace out.